Usually we want happiness. All of us want happiness. There's not one single living being, from the most minute life forms to the most sophisticated life forms, supposedly ourselves, doesn't seek or look for or try to achieve happiness. Always, everyone wants happiness. Everyone is looking for happiness. Happiness is a word that is sought after, that is looked for. All religions, all philosophers, all teachers teach us to find happiness or to be happy. Everywhere we go, we hear that and we want to know and we want to achieve that. Achieving that is very difficult because happiness is here. Wanting happiness, that's ourselves, is here. Wanting happiness and achieving happiness. But there's a space in between. And what happens is, we put a lot of labels. We put a lot of labels on people, environment, situation, past, the present. We put a lot of labels. And the labels may have come from our upbringing. The labels may have come culturally. The labels may have come from previous positive and negative experiences. Or the labels might have come from hearsay. Hearsay. So therefore, we put labels. Once we put a label, we act upon it. We act upon it because we didn't hear of a better labeling or another way of dissecting and dissecting the labels. Therefore, we believe in the labels, and we live upon the labels, and we live from the labels, and we exist within the labels. And anyone that comes near us, anything or any situation that comes near us that doesn't fit into this labeling, we call unpleasant. We call incorrect. We call not right. We call it wrong. And therefore, when we have these kind of labels, it is very strong. And we hold on to it, and we focus on it, and we believe in it, and we do it daily. This daily focusing upon these labels become fixated due to habituation. When it becomes fixated due to habituation, unlike when we first label something and we have to put a minimal amount of effort in order to fulfill that label or maintain that label, to maintain, due to habituation over time, those labels maintain us. Those labels take us over. Those labels overcome us. Those labels control us. And anything that comes that is contrary to the labels that we have set out for ourselves due to many factors, it creates friction. It creates unhappiness. Happiness and unhappiness, we think, comes from people, their attitude, our surroundings, our environment. For people who do not understand the labeling process and living in, from, and with a label, it may seem like that. It may seem like that. If we're in a very hot environment, a person may find that very unpleasant. From that, anger arises. From that, a hot volley of words. Or if we're with people from a different culture, if we are with people from a different culture and thinking and a different type of mindset, when they say or do things that is contrary to our set of ideals or thinking, then conflicts arise. And then those conflicts arise, and then from that more conflicts arise, and from that more conflicts and more conflicts and more conflicts. Those conflicts do not inherently exist. Those conflicts do not exist or arise from a permanent, set, clear source. And the reason for that is, if there's a person we don't like, if there's a person we find very irritating, yes, that person can be irritating. That person can be harmful. That person can be negative. But if that person was inherently negative, meaning everyone and everything that person comes across, they view him as negative, then that person's inherently negative. But even the most negative people in the world have people that like them, have people that will be with them, have people that will interact and associate with them, although we don't like them. So when we label that person is not good, we don't like, we don't want to deal with, we don't want to have anything to do with, maybe at our level initially, it will be more beneficial to avoid that person or avoid that personality, not because that person is good, bad, wrong, or whatever, because we're not at a level to deal with it. But ultimately, from a spiritual sense, spiritual meaning of the spirit, not just religious, ultimately from the spiritual sense, when we look at that person, we have to examine, how were they brought up? How was their feelings? What type of childhood did they have? What was their environment? Where did they come from? What formed their feelings? So therefore, if we examine into their background, we find out that they had some difficult situation, they had the difficult problems or whatnot, then we can understand them better. For example, if we come across people that are very miserly, very miserly, very calculative, when we go out with them, we always have to pay. They never pay. When we do anything with them, they calculate everything to a penny, and they always let you know ahead of time, I don't have any money. So what they do is, if you invite them along, they pay their way by being entertaining, they think. They pay their way by being a great conversationalist. Or they pay their way by being someone that just, keeps you company because you need some company. So we feel that they're very bad. They use us. They're greedy. They're miserly. And they always take advantage of my situation. That I'm generous, that I'm giving. And they may even say things like, well, you earn more than me, therefore, you should pay. They can use all this type of reasoning. On initial thought, we can look at them and say they're very bad. In a conventional sense, yes, miserliness is very unpleasant. To be around miserly people is very unpleasant. On a conventional level, yes, but we need to look deeper. Perhaps when they were very young, they come from a very poverty-stricken situation. Perhaps they had worked many years to earn what they had. Perhaps they have lost their wealth or their earnings a few times. Or perhaps they were cheated. Or perhaps they were used. So there may be many situations of why they are the way they are. Many situations. But that does not take away from the point that they still are miserly greedy at this moment. That doesn't take that away. So therefore, if we meditate on that, what's the reason to meditate on that? The reason to meditate is that the next time you go out with, when you meditate on that and you become generous, you don't send out an email, every single miserly person, come to me because you can't affect me anymore. You don't do things like that. What you can do is this, is that when you come across that situation and you meditate and you think and contemplate of why they became like that or the potential of why they became like that, because however people live, there's always a cause. If we understand the cause, we can let go of our anger. Letting go of our anger towards that person doesn't mean that we don't have to be careful. Letting go of our anger toward that person doesn't mean we have to not be careful. Letting go of our anger toward that person doesn't mean they can take advantage of us. Being taken advantage of and you being used is not spiritual. It's stupidity. Very simple. Plain stupidity. So if you're around a person, you know they are greedy, miserly, or they're calculative. When you go out with them, you tell them very nicely, we have to go Dutch. We have to share. I can't afford it this time. We have to be very clear and very open with it. Not with a malicious type of negative, bitchy remark, but kindly. Why? We need to let them know that what they're doing is not all right. but with the correct motivation. Usually people who don't meditate and contemplate on the causes of people's miserliness, the causes of people's selfishness or anger or lack of awareness, they become angry at them. They lose patience with them. They don't want to deal with them, and the minute they slip, they want them out. Usually people are like that. You see, but if we're spiritual, or when we're engaged in spiritual practice, that type of reaction to that person is contradictory to our spiritual practice. If we go to the Holy Church and we pray, and we believe in Jesus, if we take refuge and we surrender ourselves to the three jewels, having that type of reaction to people is contradictory to the very reason we go to church or take refuge. Contradictory. Why is it contradictory? This person offers us an opportunity to examine ourselves very deeply. Not wanting to, but why not take advantage of that situation? This person gives us an opportunity to examine deeply and carefully how our mind reacts. So when this person is selfish, when we think about what's happened to them, how they were brought up, what's their situation, what happened to them? Our anger is let go. When our anger is let go, that is spiritual practice. And that catalyst was meeting up and dealing with this person. So in actual Buddhist philosophy, we say that this type of person is very kind to us. Not that they wanted to be kind, but they are kind because how do you develop spiritual qualities without being challenged about your spirituality? How? People are very good in ranting and raving and complaining and pointing fingers. Very good at it. I am too. Very good at pointing fingers and ranting and raving. But the ultimate thinking is, I have labeled that person as miserly. From that label, I don't like him. I don't want to associate with this person. And if anybody else associates with this person, they're making me wrong. So therefore, I'm going to talk about this person. Therefore, I'm going to gossip about this person. Therefore, I'm going to help people and let them know about this person. And therefore, it builds and builds and builds. And then when this person comes and talks to me, I react negatively to them. Why? Because I have this label. They are miserly, they are bad, and they harm me. And even if this person is not around anymore, even if this person doesn't exist anymore, even if this person is not near me anymore, it doesn't matter because I'm still living from that label. Miserly people and greedy people and selfish people are bad. I don't want to deal with them. I don't want to help them. I don't want to be associated with them in any way, shape, or form. But the truth of the matter is, yes, they are greedy. Yes, they are difficult. Yes, they have this problem. But not dealing with this problem doesn't help us grow spiritually. Doesn't help us. How can we ascend heaven? How can we become a Buddha if we hate even one single person in this world? How can we? How can we? So if there's 100 people in this world, and we like 99, and we really love them, we can give our bodies for them, we can just sacrifice ourselves to them. But there's one person that we don't like. How can we achieve heaven? How can we achieve Buddhahood? Why? The state of heaven, or the state of an enlightened mind, is free of all contaminated thoughts, or all negative thoughts, or all negative reactions and negative contemplations. If a mind is not free from that, how can we achieve? That's why logically, when we come across people in all religions who simply say, accept this person, accept this supernormal person, accept this supernatural being, accept this incredible being, the minute they say you accept, everything is all right. It doesn't make sense to me. Why does it make sense to me? If your mind is not free of the causes that make you not spiritual, how do you become spiritual by accepting a supernormal, supernatural being? How? So if we accept someone holy like Jesus, if we accept someone holy like Buddha, if we accept these beings, And then we make no effort thereafter whatsoever. We make no spiritual practice whatsoever in challenging our perspective and views and thoughts. And we just say, we have accepted, and I'm going to go to heaven. To me, it doesn't make sense. It sounds like a farmer's religion or a peasant religion. Religions that people with big hats, big robes, big thrones. A little self-incriminating, but it's all right. Big thrones, big hats, big names, big titles, sit on a big chair and tell you, you don't ask me any questions, you just do what I say. I know and you don't know. That doesn't work anymore, does it? Well, it does a little some parts of the world, but not for most people. Certainly wouldn't work in this room. Tsem Rinpoche was born out of a lotus, and he's pure. He has no anger. His body has no stretch marks. He is perfect. And whatever he tells you is the truth. And if you don't believe him, you're going to go to hell. I think all of you in unison will chant back, you go to hell. Doesn't make sense. But it does work with some people out there who don't want to challenge or take the responsibility to think more. And some people even take religion as a way of covering guilt or covering taking responsibility. Well, I accepted God. I've accepted Buddha. So I'm going to be all right. I can be greedy at work. I can cheat people. I can go and kill animals and eat animals. I can even kill people because I've accepted God. I can do whatever I want because I've accepted Buddha. I've taken refuge. So I don't have to do any more. I don't have to take any more responsibility. I don't have to challenge my mind. Why? Because I was told that that's all I need to do. See, people who believe that is not taking the extra step. They're fooling themselves. It's like saying, hey, the minute you're sick, you enter the hospital, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to go for a checkup. You don't have to go to an x-ray. You don't have to consult a doctor. You just wait in the waiting department area. You just wait there 2-3 hours and come out and you're fine. So people who go to church, people who go to a temple, and they take refuge, they go for ceremonies, and they don't challenge themselves. They just say, hey, the pastor, the priest, the monk, the lama, the Rinpoche told me, I took refuge, everything's fine, I don't have to do anything else. That's like going to a hospital and hanging out in the waiting room. Waiting for what? I don't know. But you're certainly not going to get healed. You see, if you're me, and you're not well, this is what I do. This is my little trick to get attention and get a doctor first because there's a big line and I'm selfish. When I go to the hospital, I make a lot of noise. And I really drum, I really hammer. I go, ow, oh, ow, ow. If I see someone in line for me, ow! So I make sure they get out of the way. Ow, ow, and I dribble some things, you know. And I say, doctor, ah! Want me to die here? Here's my credit card. Ah! Of course, they'll let me in, right? Who will go to the hospital and hang out in the waiting room? I certainly wouldn't. So why would you go to the temple and hang out in the waiting area? Why would you go to the church and hang out in the waiting area? You don't do anything. You take commitments. You take refuge. You get baptized. All that is beautiful. You get baptized. You take refuge. In Buddhism, refuge is the same as baptism. Same. But you hang out in the waiting room. That can all be.